Good morning. It's a great honour to be here this morning addressing the Northwest Employers Annual Conference. You're all very welcome and I look forward to sharing my thoughts with you. The essence of asset-based community development, and really the essence of what I want to share today, can be summed up, I think, in 7 key messages. So the first is that we really need to understand that we can't know what a community needs, whether that need relates to employment or health or social care. We cannot possibly know what a community needs until that community first knows itself what it has. We have an obsession, I believe, throughout Europe of focusing on what's wrong. And I think we need to build a different obsession, an obsession that focuses on what's strong. So my first key message, and I think the essence of ABCD, is we need to move from what's wrong to what's strong. I think the second key feature, the essence, if you like, of ABCD, and another key message for this conference, is that we need to start looking at shaping our organizations, our programs, and our offers much more around how people shape their lives. So we need to organize our services, our policies, and the way we commission the way people organize their lives, and stop expecting people to organize their lives, particularly when they're most vulnerable, the way we organize our services. I think that's the second challenge, and I believe the essence of ABCD as well. Another challenge is that we have so often been focused in an effort to be helpful on provision of services to clients. Client is a word which comes from a Greek derivative which means to be on your back and powerless. I think we need to shift the conversation away from a focus about clients or on clients to a focus on citizens, and how instead of providing services to citizens, often expecting them to be passive in the receipt of those services, we can work in real partnership with citizens to co-create a better democracy, better employment opportunities, and stronger communities. I think the other, almost riffing off that last point, the other key point around ABCD is that there are 2 tools for social change. One is definitely systems, services, institutions. But the other tool of social change is the tool of community, of ordinary people coming together to make a difference in their lives, in their communities, in their economies. And I believe we need to get that in better balance. There are things that we can only do together with our families and community that simply there is no surrogate for from institutional life, regardless of how little or how much money may be in the institution. And so we need to figure out how to support those things, I believe. So I think those questions around what organizations need to start doing and what they need to stop doing are critical. One of the key questions I believe organizationally we can ask ourselves is, what are we not going to do to be helpful? And this is a really big challenge, because most of us have been trained as professionals to ask the question, what am I going to do to be helpful? But somehow the challenge here is about leading by stepping back. I see up and down this country over the last number of years so many people who with good intention are commissioning second-tier organizations to provide services which don't build capacity and asset but often build dependency. You know, where we're asking second-tier organizations to provide services to clients, we're actually saying grow your client base. I believe what we should be saying is grow the strength of community and ensure that where services are needed, they're provided in a person-centered way. So there's a real challenge, I think, in stopping a commissioning structure that grows client base instead of community. I think the other thing we're obsessed by, as I said at the beginning, is problem solving. We look for problems, we look for needs, we look for deficits, we focus on the half-empty part of the glass, what's missing, what's broken, what needs fixing. I often joke that the only thing that needs analysis is needs analysis. If we're doing what we're doing to be helpful, and we're starting from a place whereby we're saying to people, tell me about what's broken within you, tell me what it is you need me to fix, we're creating a power dynamic between us and them, which I believe is perverse and unhealthy, and doesn't actually lead to empowerment at all, but dependency. So I think what we need to stop doing is needs analysis, and what we need to start doing is asset inventories. In other words, we need to migrate from maps of misery to maps of asset, strength, and capacity. I think the other thing that we need to stop doing is assuming that we're the ones with all the answers, that the institutions are the ones that know and that the people that they're serving are the ones that don't. And really start thinking about how we grow a partnership where we recognize that we're all bringing something vital and unique to the table. I heard somebody joke yesterday that partnership in this country is the suppression of mutual loathing in pursuit of government funding. We need to build real partnership that doesn't look like that, but really, really recognizes that partnership is built when all parties are recognized as bringing something to the table that's unique and important and brings added value. So I think there are pieces that we can begin to look at in terms of what we stop doing, but also in terms of what we start doing. It suggests to us that we need to change and move towards a commissioning structure that is much more strength-based. We need to learn how to, as practitioners, work in a much more asset-based way. So many of our questions of people will change. And I think we also need to think about our language. Are we talking about engaging clients, or are we talking about building democracy with citizens? We need to think that through, I think, very carefully at policy level, at political level, and also at local level. So there's a challenge there for everybody, not just the systems, but also for citizens. If citizens believe the only way my life can get better or stronger is if somebody from outside comes in to make it better or stronger, I think they'll be disappointed. They are the people they've been waiting for. We are the people we've been waiting for. There are examples from all over the world that I can cite. I think the gold standard actually is Seattle in the United States under the stewardship of Jim Deers, who took up the role of department lead in the Department of Neighbourhoods. And it's really interesting to think that a local government, a very large government it has to be said, would actually create its own department to recognise that people organise their lives in neighbourhoods and not by silo or by function. So that's a terrific example. Closer to home, we're seeing in Croydon, for example, in the borough of Croydon in London, we're seeing terrific collaboration between local government, CVSs, and indeed local residents. And we're seeing actually at local level hundreds and hundreds of citizens coming forward, connecting with each other, coming up with citizen-led action that they're really passionate about, that they really care about. You see, the essence, I think, of this is the recognition that there are things that people want in their lives that don't include services. And this is the critical people. People will constantly say to us, we want a life, not a service, but we want a service there as we live our lives. And often what they're saying is that to receive a service, they have to fall into crisis, fit a criteria, and pay for that service with their citizenship and with their life. And that's too high a price. So in Croydon, people are working with systems and with institutions to really figure out what exists beyond services, what exists beyond the money and the funding, but can also use money, funding, and services in service of that action. So we're seeing citizen-led action all over Croydon. In Gloucestershire, we're seeing examples where over 86 different organisations are collaborating with each other and with 8 neighbourhoods to begin to think about how they can promote community building and ensure that the services that are provided are and continue to be person-centred. I could go on. There are examples now of beacon projects that Nurture Development are involved in all over the UK and indeed all over Europe, which really illustrate the power of partnership and the power of co-production. But the critical piece in what I think ABCD has to offer is that it puts the citizen in the lead, that it starts with the assets of the citizen, and it recognises that professionals and services are there in service to support citizen-led action and be there in reserve when needed. I think one of the things that probably is critical in the message around ABCD, particularly as we face into more challenging economic times, is that the strength of leadership is in the process of handing your power away. In a sense, this is about leading by stepping back while still caring. We're not promoting this idea that systems and services abdicate responsibility. Clearly there are limits to local. Clearly there are things that absolutely need to be done by systems and institutions. But there are also things that can only be done in communities. And I suppose the challenge is, how do we balance those things out? I think there are critical questions which I'd like to pose to the conference, which maybe will begin to help to unpack the relationship between the unique competency of citizens, the unique competency of organizations, and what it is together they're called to do. One of the things I want to emphasize is we cannot use asset-based language to excuse any compromise in terms of social justice. There are many people who continue to need additional supports and continue to need services. We shouldn't be using the language of ABCD to in any way excuse illegitimate cuts or the abdication of responsibility and leadership. I often use the metaphor of the cliff, where you can imagine sometimes people fall over the cliff. There needs to be an ambulance at the bottom to do something about people who fall over the cliff. And more importantly, we need to build fences at the edge of the cliff to stop people falling over in the first place. But also we need to think about what we're going to do well in from the edge of the cliff. I call that community building. My challenge to conference today is not just to invest in services, not just to invest in ensuring professionals get more professional, but also invest in citizens getting more connected with each other. We have for years tangerinized communities and organized them into wedges of need, the frail elderly to youth at risk, and we aggregate them together and provide services. My challenge to you is to work with the juice and learn how to actually connect entire neighborhoods together. And the only way to do that is invest in community building. So let me end by posing 3 questions that I think frame this up politically and also at leadership level. My 3 questions for conference as I leave you, and I'm going to read these because I want to be precise about what the questions ask you to think through. The first is, what can communities do that organizations cannot? The second question is, what can communities do with organizations that neither can do alone? And the final question, what can organizations do that people cannot do? In the final analysis, when the people who are defined as the problem secure the power to redefine the problem, we will transform society. Because everybody knows at the end of the day, you cannot possibly know what a community needs until they first know what they have. Thank you, and good luck with the rest of your conference.